Good morning, everyone. It's Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony here up on the hill. Really nice, warm morning here in San Diego County. I'm wearing a t-shirt for the first time in months up here about 8 a.m. in the morning. So it is Mother's Day in America, May 11th. So we're going to go over the astrology of May 11th to the 17th. And we've got ourselves a big old full moon tomorrow on May 12th. Okay, full moon in Scorpio. So that really is the main theme of this week. There's a couple of things happening at the end of the week, but really those are kind of part of this full moon. I mean, the full moon energy ripples out a couple weeks anyway. And so we're going to take this kind of whole week as one big aspect, one big transit that's going on here. And it is pretty intense. Scorpio is always intense. It's deep. Okay. It has a lot to do with, secrets and realizations, but also releases and having to let things go, for example. And so what's been happening, if you've been listening to these the last several months, if you go back to October, November time frame, okay? October was when Jupiter in Gemini started its sextile with Chiron and Aries. And then in November, that was when Mars started its opposition to Pluto. And they went from Cancer, Capricorn into Leo, Aquarius over that time. So now we got Mars in Leo, Pluto in Aquarius. That opposition's over. This sextile between Jupiter and Chiron is coming to an end here over this coming week or so. And this full moon is activating it. Okay, so part of what's happening with this full moon, we've got the full moon in Scorpio. It's opposing the sun, obviously, in Taurus. That Taurus sun is conjunct Uranus in Taurus. So there's a sense of surprise, an element of surprise associated with this full moon. Again, this can be realization, secrets coming to light, things we realize we have to let go of. It's, at this point, we have to do that in order to kind of fulfill what that sextile has to do with. And that sextile, going back to October, Jupiter and Chiron, had a lot to do with expanding our awareness of where we've limited our sense of personal capability to live sovereignly. Okay, so lots of things have come up since October that have challenged us to expand our minds and say, well, maybe I'm not that limited, right? So we have to experience the limits so that we have the opportunity to expand beyond it. Okay, so now we're at a point where we're graduating from that lesson. And this full moon, it's like the final things that have to be revealed to us to kind of give us that epiphany moment where we say, oh, this is why I've held myself back. And this is what my true potential is. This is how far I can go with this, okay? This is my idea. How can it ever be good enough? That's that Chiron and Aries thing. And Jupiter and Gemini is saying, well, you can use it this way, you can use it that way. So many different ways you can use this idea. You don't have to be rigidly locked into one thing. So that could be part of the realization, right? It could also be a realization that we're clinging to something or someone that has been holding us back. And we need to release that person or that thing, okay, from our lives, that habit, maybe, okay? Scorpio has a lot to do with releasing habits. So if we had bad habits that are just kind of like, we're spending too much in this area, and that's preventing us from being able to invest in what we actually want to do. So that can be a realization, right? That can be part of that as well. It's just a matter of like where we're investing our energy. It's a realization of where we're investing our energy and where we could be investing our energy, okay? So big culmination coming up here in the next week or two with that. Also, going back to the idea of that Mars-Pluto opposition that started in November. So on Monday, tomorrow, the 12th, Mercury in Taurus will square Pluto in Aquarius. Then 5 days later, on Saturday, that would be May 17th, that is when Mercury will square Mars. So it's going to square Pluto and then Mars 5 days apart because Pluto and Mars are separating at this point. But it's really stimulating that relationship that goes back to November. And that had to do with kind of reviewing how we take action, what motivates us, okay? And so there's been kind of like a cocoon and kind of a respite as we figure out how we transform how do we transform our sense of taking action and what motivates us. And so that, again, we're graduating from that as well. And we kind of already started that, but now Mercury in Taurus stimulates that. And it says, okay, what do we want to lock in? Because Taurus is very stable, very earthy. What do we want to lock in for this new sense of thinking about where we want to put our action, how we want to take action, etc. So it's really locking in that transformation that has occurred since the fall. Okay, and so that encompasses this whole week as well. On the 17th, on Saturday, there'll also be the exact conjunction between the Sun and Uranus, and that really just amplifies this full moon energy in a way. That's not really anything extra. just an amplification. It kind of puts a pinpoint on that full moon energy and says, yes, next Saturday might be a turning point because Mercury's squaring Mars. That's exact. Maybe that's a very significant day would be next Saturday, based on the energy of this full moon, or what this full moon has to do with. Okay, and this will also be the final Sun-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. Uranus entered Taurus back in 2018. The first conjunction between them was in 2019, in the spring of 2019, and this will be the final one, because the next time that the Sun comes back into this area, Uranus will be in Gemini. So its next conjunction with Uranus will be in the sign of Gemini, no more Taurus conjunction. So this is also a completion or a culmination of a phase. Okay, and so with Uranus and Taurus, there has been a lot of radical revisions in terms of our sense of security and safety. So, we might see money in a very different way than we did back in 2018, for example. Okay, we may see just our relationship with money in a different way. And we may have more trust in taking chances in things like that. So that is also culminating and also part of this full moon. Again, that goes back to that full moon theme of realizing where we're invested and where we need to be invested to totally support ourselves, that Chiron, Aries, etc. And then the final thing that is going to be happening over this next week or two in the background is that same Jupiter in Gemini is actually squaring the moon's nodes, the north node in Pisces, south node in Virgo. Okay, and so based on the culmination of these realizations and this graduating from this whole period from going back to the fall, now we're faced with decisions. Okay, and it's really a battle between our intuition and our logic. And what we're being asked to do is to trust our intuition, because the intuition, Pisces, North Node, that's where we're headed. Okay, and so we're trusting our intuition based on some of the realizations that are coming up right now with this full moon. Okay, so it's okay to trust that. In other words, we'll be tempted to stick with the tried and true, right? The logic that says, well, what about this? Well, but I haven't really done enough here. Am I really going to have enough when I get there? And all these kind of questions, that's going to slow us down. So we're being challenged to say yes to that forward direction if our intuition is saying yes. Okay, not just do whimsical things for the whimsy of it, but to just go, you know what? It is time. And now I realize that I have the power, because that's, again, that Scorpio full moon is saying, like, where do I invest my energy? Where could I invest my energy? And that is a sense of empowerment, right? If I'm investing in being part of this group, for example, but I know I need to branch off, that's an idea of that. If I'm investing too much energy into this habit, and that's not really fulfilling me anymore, and now I have more time for something else. Okay, so it really is about taking our power back with where we invest our time, energy. Okay, so that sums it up. Big full moon culmination for the week. If you are interested in more frequent updates, do follow me on Facebook, or you could follow me here on Instagram, and you get the more written form of these. And check out my YouTube channel if you haven't. It's Christopher Taylor - Sovereign Harmony. Go back to the webinar I posted a few weeks ago on Saturn Neptune. Really a lot of information there. I encourage you to look at that. And other than that, happy Mother's Day and enjoy your Sunday. We'll see you next week. Bye.